So in this episode here, I'm going to go over a few topics that have happened throughout my career, and a lot of times when I do talk, it's going to be based on the National Guard because that's what I am slash was. That's that's the background I've got, so that's what I can chime in on. Now there is, sometimes at events that I'm a part of that deals with active duty, and then of course there'll be people that are here as guests from other military backgrounds. But so this one's start off with is going to be about the whole once a month and 2 weeks a year. I'm going to tell you right now that's complete bullshit. You learn that real fast. That's not the case. That's the baseline for being in the National Guard. And it's different. It's different for everybody. It's different and it's done by battalion level on your drill weekend and your AT. Um, Now you do get your schedule for the full year that comes out, so you can give that to your employer to get everything in place, so you could be off for those times. But changes are made, and when it comes to that, there's no fucks given. When it comes to you, your school, and your employer, when changes like that are made, and I've always thought that was pretty shitty. I've only dealt with it a few times. It didn't affect me as much because my position was always in a position with the military, so it didn't affect me, but it sure did affect a lot of people that had jobs outside the military and had schools that they were attending, college and stuff. So, but it does get put out for a year. It's supposed to be a Saturday, Sunday drill weekend, but there is times where it's different. And this I don't mind. There's months where you might have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then another month would be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that will free up a month of not having a drill at all. Those are always nice to have. And then some of them, we won't have a drill one month because they will add a drill date on the front and back end of an AT just to have more time to prepare and finalize stuff after an AT weekend. These I do feel need to be June, July because so many people that are in the National Guard do go to school. And so I think needs to be mandatory. Now it's not because we get missions for us, longest time being a transportation company. It's a matter of when they can get us on a mission. And for the longest time, we didn't have missions. Our ATs were just training sites locally. And those fucking sucked. They were a waste of time and they were boring. But had to be done. And but then we finally got some leadership in place that fought for our company to be utilized as a transportation company to do some of these missions. And another episode, I'm going to discuss some of those missions that we had that were incredible, that needed to be done and needed to be helped with, that we were able to do because of our position and the type of company we are in the National Guard. Um, so I'm definitely thankful for that part. It does affect a lot of people when those ATs are outside of those couple months during the summer, and I get that part, but the vast majority of your ATs should be done during the summer months because of those people that are in school. But then, drill weekends, and we had times where drill weekend would be a week long, and I consider that to be kind of shitty. We had one where I called it a mute 1,000 because it was like a week long in December to do all this yearly shit that we got to do. And that was pushed down from the battalion level. And the thing is when they make those decisions like that, it doesn't affect them because they're all full-time staff members that get paid the same whether they're on drill status or just normal work. They're practically active duty, and so it doesn't affect them at all, but it affects everybody else. And it didn't happen all the time. It only happened, a few times, but it happens. And so just keep that in mind as a guardsman. And that's one of the first things they tell you, be ready to go. But I agree, be ready to go when it comes to natural disasters and deployments. But for basic drill weekend and AT shit, no, it shouldn't be that way. So just keep that in mind when you're joining the Guard. It's not just a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. That's definitely not the case. It can easily change in a heartbeat. They are very lenient to where when they give out the schedule for the year, if something happens where you can't make it because of a schedule change, because you've already got something prior in place, it's a lot of times it is worked out that you don't have to attend, but that's definitely a by case situation there. Um, at one point I discussed, on my first episode about the PT belt situation, and that was, like I said, probably one of the dumbest things that I remember having to deal with when it came to just you know the way we looked and presented ourselves did not make sense. Now, the PT belt is used for when we're doing PT in the PT uniform, just a safety reflected belt to be used. But in no way should we be wearing them outside of our ACUs, OCPs, or anything like that. If you're ever in a setting where you're wearing at that time in the ACUs and you needed something on to, you know, let it be known for traffic that were there or anything along those lines. We had reflector vests for those situations. So, but even then, it's only certain people that would have them on. But to have everybody have a PT belt on, the decision made on that one was just damn near stupid. And the only reason why I bring that back up is because we had another situation that fell in line. Now, I'm not going to say it came from the same leadership with the PT belt, but it's the tattoos. And, for the longest time, you pretty much back in the day when you looked at somebody, 80s, 90s easily, you saw somebody with a bunch of tattoos. You knew that they were either military or, did a little time. And at one point, we had to, because some changes were being made by leaders up above, that we had to stop getting tattoos that were visible with a t-shirt on. Now, I do agree when we wear our dress uniforms, you shouldn't have your tattoos be able to be seen when you wear the long sleeve dress uniforms. So that means anything past your wrist onto your hands, anything on your neck and above. I do agree with that because I think when you wear something along those lines of a dress uniform, a suit, dress clothes, anything like that, I've never been a fan of, visible tattoos past that point. But there for a bit, it got to where you weren't allowed to have tattoos past the normal t-shirt. And that was, he used the PT uniform as if you can see anything visible with your PT uniform on that's out of reg. If you already had some, you were allowed to be grandfathered in, but you had to document all your tattoos. You had to take pictures. You had to have, a form filled out where they're at, what they were, what the meaning behind it was. You had to document all of that. And if at that point, after the fact, you couldn't get tattoos that were visible with your PT uniform on. So that was a very stupid time to be involved with the military when we had to go through that. But we did eventually get a leader change. And when this said leader came on, he said, pretty much said, fuck that. As long as it's tasteful, and it's not past your wrist. And then certain ones could be above the neck, like behind the ear or so, like that, if I'm not mistaken. You can have tattoos back. And long behold, after that came back, I started getting all my tattoos filled in and fixed and redone and added. So, uh, yeah, tattooed that time frame in the military when we had to go through that. It was just a lot of fucking paperwork for no reason to involve our tattoos. And so that's why I brought the PT belt up because that was a very similar Now, I'm not gonna say it was in the same time frame, I can't remember. It might have been, but, it was definitely a time where we had some stupid shit going on during downtime, and that was a big downtime for the, military when we had to go through that shit. How would you like to move your money, position your money, so you'll never have to worry about your financial future? What about creating tax shelters to actually protect your profits? Let me keep it simple. How would you like to just accelerate your cash flow? There's only one simple solution to that: Next Gen Legacy Group. Justin Melendez with the Next Gen Legacy Group is a 16-year Army veteran with years of experience applying strategy, movement, positioning to your everyday money habits. Justin is dedicated to transforming the way you structure and grow your wealth with alternative investment strategies. A financial architect, ensuring protection and growth without incurring additional cost. It empowers you with unparalleled control and flexibility over your money. What are you waiting for? Contact Justin today. 270-704-6244. That's 270-704-6244. Or email Justin, Justyn, at nextgenlegacygroup.co. Your money is losing money right now. Call today. This story here, I couldn't believe it when I was going through it. So when I first came to Camp Dodge, Iowa, it was in December, and it gets fucking cold up there. Stupid cold. And that's mainly because of the flatlands and the wind. It just cuts right through you. And I remember when I first got up there, this was the first time that I was actually on orders in a way that it was like AGR or active duty orders, as opposed to, even though I was always wearing the uniform, it was as a technician. So that was totally different. It's more of a civilian than it was anything. But so up there, I remember coming on December, and my boy Dotson, as soon as I got there, like, he did a full check on, hey, you're going to be up here during December. How are you on cold weather gear? How are you on cold weather boots? How's your vehicle? Let's check everything, make sure you're good to go. So that was my first taste of really being treated in an active duty atmosphere when it came to being checked out like that. Now, in the Guard, we have those checks, but nowhere near as thorough as, like active duty when they do theirs. But there is check. And the only reason why we did it in December was because I just now came on orders up there. But now the following year, right after the fiscal year started in October, our section did it again prior to winter, make sure everything was good to go. And so I saw that from a leader that I had that was we clashed at first when I first came on, and but I learned a lot from him, seeing how he was as a leader. A lot of shit that bothered me or I thought was picky or everything, you don't realize how much you love it until they're gone, and appreciate the way he was as a leader when it came to being so specific on things like that. And that was one of them, was making sure that things were good in that area. So we damn near came to the month of February in this situation. And I had soldiers coming up to me anywhere from an E3 to even a first sergeant in February asking for winter gear and winter boots. And now during that, if I'm not mistaken, during that week that they showed up, the prior week, and this was close to the end of February, so the prior week, it was already up in the 50s and 60s. But the week that that they were concerned and showing up, it was getting cold that week, and we were going to have a pretty good snowstorm, and a lot of them were going to the field. But then the following week, it was going to be back up in the 50s and 60s again. So literally, their concern was for a few days. But I couldn't believe the fact that here it was February, and they were coming then to ask because they were starting to find out that a lot of their soldiers didn't have, either winter gear and winter boots, and, they were asking us for some, and we didn't have it. But I couldn't believe it, and I even asked, one of the first sergeants. I was like, "Wow, it's February. Why are you asking now for something that you guys should have easily asked not only your troops, but then us if they did need it last October, November?" And, of course, a lot of them that I asked did a lot of throwing people under the bus. Well, they they should have done this, they should have done that. They told me they were good, then they weren't good, all that stuff, and I'm like, "Well, then you failed as a leader when it came to that because you should have easily had a 100% accountability just for those items leading into the winter to see if they had them, especially if you know you're going to the field at all with a possibility of any bad weather. You definitely make sure that they got wet weather gear because it can happen anytime. Cold weather's the same. It can happen anytime. So you need to make sure your guys have that. But I couldn't believe the fact that it was literally February. The shit they were asking for was only to get by for those 3 days when they're out in the field, and I couldn't believe the fact that, they waited until then to ask for it. But it happens. It happens all the time everywhere. Now as a contractor, a lot of stuff that I deal with is, gear and equipment for any Army members, whether it's active duty, National Guard, reserves. We deal with all of them. And, I sit there and I think about when I went to Fort Stewart, we had a big mission there that involved the chance for these guys to get winter gear, especially the winter boots, and a lot of them took them. And then down at Fort Campbell, there's a couple events I had there where they had the same option to take winter gear and winter boots. One group took all of it pretty much, and another group not so much. I did the same thing out at Fort Carson, and of course, those guys being out by the mountains, they took everything they could. But I would ask them why they're not taking it, and then I get the same answer that they don't wanna have to keep up with it. And a lot of that gear, especially the underlayers of winter and the, winter boots, they're not turn-in items. So even then, when I would tell them, especially with the winter boots, I was like, "Why are you turning free boots down? They're giving you boots." And I look back now and see both styles of uniforms that we had, the that I dealt with, I did have the BDUs at first, but not long. But, the ACUs and the OCPs and the style of boots we got with those, I have summer boots, I have winter boots, and I have steel toe boots that I've gotten throughout the years. And, I still have all of them, and to the point where I know I don't ever have to buy a boot if I don't want to, because of them. But, I tried telling them, I said, "This is free issue boots that you can have forever and never have to worry about buying boots. Why would you turn that down?" And even on uniforms, some of these uniforms that they get, I'm like, "Why not take it? Because these are free uniforms that you've got, especially your basic, at the time, ACUs and then the OCP uniforms. You don't turn those in." And, and I think about how now with my old ACUs that, I cut a lot of those pants up into shorts to use for, doing yard work, being out in the field, whatever. And some of the old winter stuff and, even uniforms I use during hunting season. So, I mean, that's all free shit that you can use anytime. And, so I'm just like, "Why are you turning this shit down? Take it, use it, forever and ever." So, I couldn't fathom the fact that these guys didn't have that winter boots, especially the winter boots is what they really wanted. And to be honest, the winter boots are not as great as everyone thinks they are. Yeah, they're insulated, but from the winter boots I've always had, if you wore your normal socks with the insulation winter boot, they don't keep them warm. And the way, you're out in this majority of the snow and all that anyways, and they get wet, your feet just gets fucking cold either way. I'd much rather have my normal summer boots that are broken in real good, and just have some thick socks. Those would do way better than the winter boots anyway. So, but, yeah, the winter boots situation there, was crazy, that, dealing with. Um, so yeah, that's, just a few topics that I remember off the top of my head that I wanted to just have, quick word about, to have this episode about. Let people, comment on it and with their thoughts. And that's another episode of Beef Eat Podcast. We'll see you next time.